Ellsworth Raymond Johnson, better known to history, the streets, and Harlem as Bumpy Johnson. A man whose name still echoes through American history, jazz, culture, and black empowerment in the 20th century. To some, he was a ruthless gangster. To others, he was a hero, a community protector, and even a Robin Hood figure of Harlem. His story is one of poverty and power, of betrayal and loyalty, and of Harlem itself, in all its glory and struggle. Today, we're diving deep into the life of Bumpy Johnson, the man who went from poor kid in South Carolina to the Godfather of Harlem. Ellsworth Raymond Johnson was born on October 31st, 1905 in Charleston, South Carolina. His parents, William Johnson and Margaret Moultrie, raised him in the world still recovering from Reconstruction, where Jim Crow laws and racial violence shaped the daily lives of Americans in South Carolina. As a boy, Ellsworth was short-tempered, rebellious, and quick to fight back. He got his nickname Bumpy early on because of his noticeable bump on his back, a deformity he carried his entire life. In 1990, when Bumpy was just 14 years of age, tragedy struck. His older brother, Willie, was accused of killing a white man. Fearing for his life, in the West South, Willie fled Charleston. The parents knew they had to protect somehow their children, so they sent Bumpy north to Harlem, New York, to live with his relatives. This move would change his life forever. Harlem was, in the 1920s, booming, a cultural renaissance of jazz, poetry, and black pride. But it was also a place of struggle with limited opportunities, and crime was often the only path to power. For young Bumpy Johnson, Harlem became a blessing and a battleground. In Harlem, Bumpy quickly found himself drawn through the streets. He was very smart, tough, and strategic. He began running errands, gambling, and working for local hustlers. But he also had a sharp mind for books and poetry, a side many people didn't know about him. Bumpy was an avid reader, especially of history and philosophy. Later in his life, he would quote Shakespeare's and poetry in the middle of street conversations. By the late 1920s, Bumpy had caught the eye of Stephanie Clair, better known as Madame Queen, the powerful woman who controlled Harlem's number rackets, the illegal lottery that was the lifeblood of the neighborhood. She hired Bumpy as the enforcer. His job? Protecting her turf, keeping rivals in check, and making sure the Queen's operation ran smoothly. It was during this time that Bumpy's reputation for both brutality and intelligence really grew. He was not just a street thug, he was strategic, calculating, and fiercely loyal. But soon, a new threat emerged that would change the Harlem underworld forever: the Italian Mafia. Dutch Schultz, one of New York's most ruthless mobsters, wanted to take over Harlem's, the Queen refused. And standing between her and Charles was none other than Bumpy Johnson. This sparked a violent war in Harlem shootouts, ambushes, and bloodshed became the norm. But Bumpy held his ground, proving himself as a fearless and cunning soldier. By the early 1930s, he was the most trusted man in Harlem underworld. After Dutch Schultz was assassinated in 1935, Harlem's most powerful dynamics shifted. The Italian Mafia, led by Lucky Luciano, saw an opportunity. Rather than fight endlessly, Luciano reached out to Bumpy Johnson. Unlike so many mobsters, Bumpy wasn't afraid of the Italian. He knew they needed Harlem's numbers rackets, and Harlem needed peace. So he struck an historic deal. Bumpy would manage the Italian mob's interest in Harlem while also protecting Harlem's black community from being completely overrun. This partnership made Bumpy rich and powerful. He controlled gambling, narcotics, and other rackets. But he was not just a gangster. He became someone of a folk hero. He gave turkeys on Thanksgiving. He paid rent for families who were struggling. He bailed young men out of jail and offered protection to those who couldn't defend themselves. Still, Bumpy was no saint. He was violent when crossed. Rivals feared him, and enemies often disappeared. He was paradox, both a feared mob and a community protector. In 1952, Bumpy's empire was shaken. Federal authorities charged him with drug conspiracy, and he was sentenced to 15 years in Alcatraz, the infamous prison off the coast of San Francisco. Inside Alcatraz, Bumpy continued his reputation as a leader. He organized reading groups, debated philosophy with other inmates, and even mentored young prisoners. But he also maintained respect as a tough man who wouldn't back down. He served nearly a decade behind bars. When he was released in 1963, Harlem had changed. Civil rights movements were in full swing. Heroin had devastated the community, and new players were rising in the underworld. But even in his 50s, Bumpy returned to Harlem, determined to reclaim his influence. Back in Harlem, Bumpy tried to balance old-school gangsterism with the rapidity changing world. He was respected by leaders of the civil rights movement, including Malcolm X, whom Bumpy reportedly had a complicated but mutual respect for. However, the FBI and NYPD kept him under constant surveillance. They wanted him off the streets for good. Despite this, Bumpy still walked the streets of Harlem with pride. To many, he was the last of the real Harlem kings, but his health was failing. On July 7, 1968, while dining at Wells Restaurant in Harlem, Bumpy Johnson collapsed from a heart attack. He was 62 years of age. His death marked the end of an era. Thousands came out to his funeral, filling the streets of Harlem. Gangsters, celebrities, and everyday people all paid respect to Bumpy. To Harlem, Bumpy was more than just a mob boss. He was a symbol of power, resilience, and survival. Bumpy Johnson's life was a complex one. He was a gangster who dealt with crime, violence, drugs, but he was also a protector of his people, a man who loved poetry, and someone who refused to let Harlem be swallowed whole by outsiders. His story has been immortalized in films like American Gangsters and the TV series Godfather of Harlem. Yet, beyond Hollywood, his legacy lives on in Harlem's history, a reminder of a man who walked the fine line between villain and hero. Bumpy was Harlem's king, and his name will never be forgotten. Thank you for watching this video again. If you are new to this channel, please watch, like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Anybody wants to hear beautiful stories, right? Leave us comments in the comment section below about what do you think about Bumpy Johnson and what story do you want to hear next. I will see you next.